चलो ठीक है, ये वाला 0620 ये समर 22 क्वेश्चन पेपर 42। ठीक है, ये वाला पेपर बस सॉल्व करते हैं कि फॉर्म्स फर्स्ट थिंग फॉर्म्स अ स्टेबल आयन विद अ चार्ज ऑफ +2। ये कौन होता है? ग्रुप 2 होता है। ठीक है, और अगर प्योर टेबल है दैट्स गोइंग टू बी Mg। ठीक है, in this case there is the least reactive in the period. Period C में least reactive noble gases. ठीक है, noble gases are the least reactive, so that's argon. उनके outer shell octets are complete, so they don't react. It's used in water treatment. ठीक है, so water treatment में it's going to be water is treated in if you want to treat water, ठीक है, you have to kill bacteria, and chlorine in swimming pools etc. that's used to kill bacteria. Water के अंदर आपने taste improve करना है ना, तो that's carbon is added or charcoal is added. अच्छा, forms an oxide. अच्छा, यहाँ पे लिख देते हैं this kills bacteria. Then you have forms an oxide, which is the main impurity in iron ore. So iron ore के अंदर ना you've got hematite, which is Fe2O3, and there is impurity which is silica sand. ठीक है, blast furnace के अंदर you extract it, you try to remove SiO2. So silicon का जो oxide है, that's the main impurity. Is an important component of fertilizers. Fertilizers are salts that contain NPK. So they're basically nitrates, phosphates, ammonium, or potassium salts mostly. So either the pure table, the elements that are given, that's going to be phosphorus. Okay. It's stored under oil. So there's an element that is so reactive, which is sodium, that it will react, it will catch fire, it will start burning with air. It reacts explosively, so you have to store it in oil. Food containers आप बनाते हो aluminium से. ठीक है, aluminium is used. Aluminium is unreactive. Why is it unreactive? Because aluminium has this coating of Al2O3 on top of it, which is quite tough and non-porous and unreactive. So food containers are made out of aluminium because it's a metal, it's a good conductor of heat, and it's very unreactive. It won't react with your food. So is found in the ore of zinc blend. So zinc blend में ना sulfur is present. Zinc blend is this thing. It's ZnS. So it contains zinc as well as sulfur. ठीक है, sulfur ही नहीं होता. अच्छा, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, फिर next one is के next question. You've got so the next question is calcium hydroxide is slightly soluble in water. ठीक है, so it dissolves very slightly. Can be made by the reaction of calcium with water. Write a chemical equation. तो उससे calcium with water, and you get calcium hydroxide. So it's going to form calcium hydroxide. So there are two oxygens, so there will be two oxygens. When a metal reacts with water, it also produces hydrogen gas. Okay? So this equation now is balanced. Name another substance that reacts with water to form calcium hydroxide. Calcium oxide को भी पानी में अगर mix करोगे ना, any oxide, it will also form calcium hydroxide. So when calcium hydroxide dissolves in water, it dissociates into ions and forms a weakly alkaline solution. So there's the pH of the calcium hydroxide में कौन सा ion होता है? You've got OH ions. It has OH ions, right? So OH ions will make the solution alkaline. If there had been H plus ions, the solution would have been acidic. Okay, in this case, it's going to be alkaline, and the pH will be around 9. Okay, 14 is very alkaline. It's not going to be 14 because it's very slightly soluble. So पानी के साथ mix नहीं होगा. So it's not going to dissolve that much. which is why it's not going to be very alkaline. To give the formula of the ion responsible for making the solution alkaline, वो पहले ही हमने कर दिया. That's OH ions. ठीक है, Alia, is this clear?
जी सर.
So lime water is a saturated solution of calcium hydroxide. So lime water is calcium hydroxide, by the way. Then the gas lime water is used to test for. This is test for cations. ठीक है. कौन सी गैस होती है जिसमें लाइम वाटर डालते हैं टर्न्स मिल्की? ये वो एसिड बेसिस सॉल्ट्स की रिवीजन शीट है. ठीक है. सो अच्छा, लाइम वाटर मिल्की, ये सॉल्ट्स के टेस्ट. That's carbon dioxide gas. ठीक है. It's over here. Turns lime water milky. ये दो पेजेस हैं, ये याद रखने. ठीक है. अच्छा, so it turns lime water milky. It's a test for carbon dioxide gas. Suggest what is meant by the term saturated solution. A saturated solution is a solution that इसके अंदर आप बहुत ज़्यादा mix नहीं कर सकते. So when no further amount of substance can dissolve in a solution. Or maximum amount of solute has already dissolved in a solution, that is saturated. Saturated solution में ना crystallization start हो जाती है. The ions, they start joining up and they start forming a crystal. Describe how you would make a sample of lime water starting with solid calcium hydroxide. So 2 marks है. You've got solid calcium hydroxide, तो उस पानी में मिक्स ही करना है. So it's going to become calcium hydroxide aqueous. लेकिन it has to be a saturated solution. That means कि maximum amount dissolve करनी है. So it has to be a saturated solution. So that means keep adding. CaOH2 solid. Until no further amount, or until it remains undissolved. ठीक है कि और मजीद वो बीच में मिक्स नहीं होगा. इसका हम चेक भी कर लेते हैं दोनों का. ठीक है. Okay, what's the saturated वही था, that can dissolve no more solute at a given temperature. अच्छा, at a given temperature से लिखा हुआ था. So you had a mark for that. We missed that one. Or the other one is add excess solid calcium hydroxide. अच्छा, second one filter का था. So you had to filter the undissolved until it remains undissolved, and that is, so our answer was not complete. Until you have to filter that out. Undissolved पड़ा, so you have to filter it out. और यहाँ पे तो उसने टेम्परेचर मेंशन किया होता है, at a particular temperature. तो ठीक है, ये क्लियर है?
जी सर.
So what's the test for calcium ions in a sample? How do you test calcium ions? Again, that's salt analysis. Okay. ये sheet सामने, calcium ions का क्या test होता है? Calcium ions is test for cations, based test of cations. This one. So calcium ions will form a white insoluble precipitate with NaOH. Okay, that's the test for calcium ions, and very slight precipitate in aqueous ammonia. तो टेस्ट आप कर लो कि बस वो add NaOH, white precipitate insoluble in excess. In a 25 cube sample of lime water is placed in a conical flask. The concentration of calcium hydroxide in the lime water is determined by titration with HCl. So 25 cm³ sample is present in a flask. Or ऊपर से ना he's titrating it with HCl. So he's reacting it with HCl. So name the item of apparatus used to measure the volume of acid in this titration. So acid, you ऊपर कौन सा apparatus होता है जिससे you add the acid? आपका titration का जो apparatus होता है ना, that's this thing. Just one second. I see. This is your typical. You might be asked to draw a titration apparatus, so that's your typical. Yeah, it's a typical titration apparatus. You put one substance in the conical flask, and ऊपर से ना you add another substance from a burette. ठीक है, there's a tap, and that tap is used to add more or less. ठीक है, you can stop the tap at any point. So that's your typical titration apparatus. So name the item of apparatus used to measure the volume of acid in this titration. So that's a burette. ठीक है, clear?
जी sir.
As a type of reaction, that's neutralization because it's an acid, and hydroxide is a base. So it's an acid-base neutralization reaction. और मेरे ख्याल से equation मांगी उसने state what type of substance must be added to the conical flask. Always remember that in the conical flask at the bottom, you add indicators. ठीक है? So an indicator has to be added. There are two types. I mean, there are more than two types of indicators, but usually it's methyl orange or it's phenolphthalein. So indicators are added. Indicators will change color. Okay, अगर आपने acid ज़्यादा डाल दिया ना, तो it's going to change color if you when the neutralization point is reached. As a moles question, calculate the moles. So you're saying that HCl and calcium hydroxide, they already gave you the equation. So you're saying this much amount of HCl is reacting. So concentration is given and the volume is given. So if you're given concentration and volume, how do you find moles? Moles is concentration times volume. So its concentration is 0.05 and the volume is what, 20 cm³, but it should be in dm³. So you're going to divide by 1000. Okay, so इसका निकालो क्या आता है आंसर?
एक सेकंड. 0.001.
0.00
1.
1 moles. It determines the number of moles of calcium hydroxide. So ये किसके HCl के moles आए थे? 0.001 moles. ठीक है, you found the moles of calcium hydroxide. Now, so you found the moles of calcium hydroxide. What are the moles of calcium hydroxide then? It's 2:1. So उसका half होगा. What is the half of this?
0.0005.
Take or 0.5 moles. Calculate the concentration of calcium hydroxide. So moles kya hota tha? It was concentration times volume, right? So
Yeah.
concentration will be what? Moles over volume. We already know the moles. Moles is what? 0.0005. और इसका वॉल्यूम कितना दिया होता है कैल्शियम हाइड्रोक्साइड का? Gave you the volume as 25 cm cube. So 25 in dm cube should be divided by 1000.
Zero point zero two, sir.
0.02 mole per dm cube. अच्छा अब वो वही कह रहा है कि मतलब पहला भी वही था concentration, find the concentration in mole per dm cube. Now again he's saying find the concentration in gram per dm cube. So सिर्फ क्या चेंज किया उसने? मोल्स जो है उसको चेंज कर दिया mass में. So we know it's 0.02 mole per dm cube, right? तो इसको ग्राम पर डीएम क्यूब में चेंज करना है, तो हाउ डू यू कन्वर्ट मोल्स टू मास? एमआर से मल्टीप्लाई कर देना ना.
Yeah.
So it will become gram per dm cube, right? So इसकी एमआर कितनी है कैल्शियम हाइड्रोक्साइड? दैट्स calcium I think is 40 and O is 16 and H is 1. So मिल मिला के क्या हो जाएगा? That's 16 17 times 2, that's 34 plus 40, that's 74 होगा. So 74 into 0.02 gram per dm cube. कितना है? What 74 into 0.02?
1.48.
So that is 1 point.
What?
So that's 1.48 gram per dm cube. So next one, transition elements are found in the middle, transition middle state. What is meant with the term isotopes? What's the definition of an isotope? क्या same होता है? Atoms having same proton numbers. So basically they are the same element, but a different number of neutrons. State the nuclear number of manganese. वो देख लो कि periodic table में manganese क्या होता है. It's it might be given. इसके end पे होगा periodic table. अच्छा, so manganese is Mn. Mn is this thing. ये यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है. So it is 55. अच्छा, that's जो बड़ा वाला number होता है, that's the nuclear number. इसका बता दो. Cr3 plus 52 24. Okay, what's the proton number?
I forgot this.
ये छोटा वाला होता है, that's proton number, that's 24.
Okay.
Neutron number is the difference, 52 minus 24. That's what is it? It's 26 plus 2, 28. And the proton number and the electrons are the same. So it should be 24 electrons. But C plus charge का मतलब है कि it's actually lost 3 electrons, so it's going to be 21 electrons. Okay, so always remember the smaller number is the number of protons. The bigger number is the number of protons plus neutrons. Each other number hota, that's the number of protons.
Okay.
Okay, position na socha karo. Just focus on the fact that the smaller number is the number of protons. The bigger number is the number of protons plus neutrons. Okay.
All right, sir.
So when one chemical property of transition elements is that they form compounds. So you have to remember the colors of these compounds. ये the sheet के अंदर ना ये जो एक 2 pages की sheet है ना, everything is written over here. ठीक है, colors भी हैं. So what is hydrated copper sulfate? That's blue. ठीक है, cobalt भी है. Hydrous cobalt chloride, that's pink in color. ठीक है. So you'll be asked about these colors. So just remember these 2 page की जो sheet है ना data, this has to be remembered. So that's blue in color. And this one is pink in color. So what are the other chemical properties? Transition metals had 5 properties. They had high melting points. That's a physical property. They had high densities, which is also a physical property. And then they had like 2-3 chemical properties that were typical for transition metals. They were good catalysts. And they had variable oxidation states. So they could form a compound with variable charges. So for example, Fe could be 2 plus and Fe could be 3 plus as well. Or if TCC, they would form colored compounds. Now, transition elements and group 1 elements are metals. They share the same, they share many physical properties, including the ability to conduct electricity, to be hammered into shape, malleable and ductile. Explain why transition elements and group 1 elements conduct electricity. Why do they conduct electricity? Because they have delocalized, mobile electrons. Metal atoms, they like to lose electrons. So, har metal ka jo structure hoga na, that's going to look like this. That they would all turn into positive ions and they would all lose electrons. They always like to form positive ions, and those electrons will be mobile. They will be delocalized because no one is gaining those electrons. So state the property that describes a material to be hammered into shape. That's malleable. Or a ductile hoti hai property that you can draw them into wires. You can make wires out of them. Phir agla, transition elements and group 1 elements differ in other physical properties. Transition elements are harder and stronger compared to group 1. Describe 2 other ways in which the physical properties of transition elements differ from group 1. So group 1 के जो melting points होते हैं वो बहुत low होते हैं. तो group 1 they have low melting and boiling points. Transition metals, they've got, ये अभी हमने दोनों properties लिख ली थी. और density कर लो कि high density भी होती है. That's the second point. Group 1 have very low density. Sodium, etc. They always float on water. They don't even sink. Their densities are even lesser than water. That's the next one. Make our question. Suggest the appearance of fluorine. The appearance is pale yellow or almost colorless. Group 7 की चीजें ना याद रखनी है कि fluorine, you've got chlorine, you've got bromine, and you've got iodine. Fluorine is a very colorless pale yellow gas. Chlorine is greenish yellow, bromine is red brown liquid, and iodine is a blue black solid. ठीक है, ये मैं चेक कर लूं कि उन्होंने pale yellow लिखा है कि ये लिखा है इसका, या colorless लिखा है. The appearance of yellow, pale yellow. ठीक है, that's written over here. Now fluorine reacts with sulfur to form a compound which has 25.2% by mass of sulfur and a relative molecular mass of 254. Determine the molecular formula of this compound. तो उससे क्या कि सल्फर और फ्लोरीन जो है ना वो मिलके दे आर फॉर्मिंग अ कंपाउंड. ठीक है, बल्कि 2 नहीं है. वी डोंट नो व्हाट इट इज. So we don't know what the compound is. But what information that they've given us is that the whole thing has a molecular formula of 254. Molecular mass, sorry, of 254. और उसमें वो कह रहा है कि 25.2% is fluorine reacts with which has क्या लिखा? Fluorine reacts with sulfur to form a compound which has 25.2%. So sulfur is 25.2% by mass. So this is 25.2% by mass. यानी इसका मतलब है 254 का जरा 25.2% निकालो ना, क्या आता है? आलिया क्या होगा इसका? 254
एक सेकंड से
और बाकी भी निकाल लो. बाकी परसेंटेज फिर इसकी होगी. दैट्स फ्लोरीन 25 100% में से 25.2%. So that's 74.8%.
इससे गॉट कंफ्यूज्ड. क्या करना?
उससे कहा है कि इसका जो मॉलिक्यूलर मास है ना 254 है. और उससे कहा है सल्फर जो है ना दैट्स 25.2%.
जी.
तो अब 254 का जरा 25.2% निकालो ना, क्या होता है?
ओके. $10.1.
25.2% of 254.
या
10 तो नहीं होगा. उसका 25.2 को मल्टीप्लाई करो 254 से, डिवाइड बाय 100.
ओके.
64 बनता है. और 74.8%, 74.8 डिवाइड बाय 100 और इसको टाइम्स 254. तो
या आई गॉट 64 नाउ.
190. ठीक है. अच्छा, अब हुआ ये कि दिस इज 190, लेकिन क्वेश्चन समझ आया कि he's saying कि 254 टोटल इज द मास, मॉलिक्यूलर मास, mr.
ओके.
और से कहा था 25.2% ऑफ दिस थिंग इज सल्फर. तो सल्फर कितना हो गया? 64. अब सल्फर की जो एटॉमिक मास है ना दैट्स 32. तो इसका मतलब इसमें कितने सल्फर्स होंगे? देयर विल बी 2 सल्फर्स, राइट? इज दैट क्लियर?
यस सर.
अच्छा, फ्लोरीन जो होता है ना दैट्स प्योर टेबल में इट्स 19. अब 190 करने के लिए फिर कितने फ्लोरीन होंगे? 10 होंगे. तो फॉर्मूला क्या होगा? इट्स गोइंग टू बी S2 और F कितने होंगे? 10 होंगे. इज दैट क्लियर?
यस सर.
अच्छा, so that's the answer to this one. ये बस कर लेते हैं. नाइट्रोजन क्लोराइड, उसके डॉट एंड क्रॉस डायग्राम, एवरीथिंग इज गिवन. So that's one covalent bond, one covalent bond, one covalent bond. ठीक है. Cl is group 7, so that means it has 7 electrons in its outer shell. It is sharing 1 electron, so पीछे कितना रहेगा 6. इस Cl के बिना out of 7 it is sharing 1 electron, so that's 6 electrons left. और N group 5 में होता है. Group 5 में से ना is sharing 3, so 2 electrons are left. तो ये हो गया NCl3 dot and cross diagram. Lithium chloride, lithium is group 1, so that's +1, and Cl is obviously -1 because it's group 7. So this is +1 and this is -1. Metal and non-metal, they would form an ionic compound. Explain in terms of attractive forces between particles why LiCl is a solid. So ionic compounds always have high melting and boiling points because they are very strongly attracted to each other. And they form a giant lattice. It's not just one Li, one Cl. There's going to be a lot of Cl ions and a lot of Li +1 ions.
Okay, but don't play again. Focus.
So you're going to talk about the giant ionic lattice? You're going to state that they have a giant ionic lattice. And there's strong electrostatic attraction between the positive and the negative ions, which is why they have a high melting point. Molecules में क्या होता है? Molecules में होता है कि molecules don't have a charge. So if there's another molecule, NCl3, molecules have no charge because they're sharing electrons. No one lost electrons, no one gained electrons. So when you have a covalent molecule, the structure is described as a simple molecular lattice, or it's simply described as simple molecular. And there are weak attractive forces weak intermolecular forces between molecules. ठीक है, ये एक fundamental difference है that the ionic lattices are large, they are crystalline, they have strong attractive forces because they are ions. They are positively and negatively charged ions. While molecules, covalent molecules, they don't have a charge, so they don't really attract each other. So they're low melting boiling point gases. So they'll be freely moving around. ठीक है? तो ठीक है, ये question हो गया, clear है ये?
जी sir.
तो बस question 5 फिर next class में कर लेंगे, ठीक है? ये मैं इसको note down कर लूँ.
Enough is sir.
चलिए, okay, enough is.